It might have been stupidity or drunkenness, or maybe both. But before I knew it, I was back taking insane risks.
When you think about bullet time sequences, what do you picture? Chances are it's either The Matrix or Max Payne. These two franchises are responsible for the popularity of the iconic effect in their respective mediums. But that's pretty much where their similarities stop. But no matter how you feel about the 2021 movie, it can't be denied that The Matrix was recently resurrected. Meanwhile, Max Payne remains about as dead as his family in the first game. No! Too far? Generic backstory aside, 2001's Max Payne was the beginning of a cultural turning point for video games, one that spawned 2 official sequels and inspired dozens of other titles. But is that really where Max Payne's legacy ends? A franchise with so much potential doesn't deserve to have its life snuffed out prematurely. But before we talk about the impact Max Payne had on gaming, be sure to subscribe to Nerdstalgic Gaming if you're into deep dives like this, be they slow motion or normal speed. Developed by the then novice studio Remedy Entertainment, the scope and quality of the first Max Payne game was unlike anything that had come before. This was largely, but not entirely, due to its unique bullet time mechanic. In outright defiance of the popular shooter trends of the time, Max Payne was largely preoccupied with the cinematic nature of its combat system. These slow-motion action shots were intended to make players feel like they were living out a power fantasy straight out of a John Woo movie. And that's exactly what they did. Dodging out of the way of enemy fire while dealing ridiculous damage with your own weapons was surprisingly satisfying. The movement was fluid and simultaneously so precise. The weapons felt responsive and genuinely deadly. Each level was created to perfectly complement the action, and it just looked awesome. In a lesser title, the bullet time gimmick could have quickly worn out its welcome, but with Remedy's competent team at the wheel, every encounter felt unique and challenging. Of course, it also helped that the combat wasn't the only thing critics and players were raving about. Head writer and Max Payne face model Sam Lake crafted a neo-noir story for the ages. Though the story is often painted as being super serious, there was definitely a level of tongue-in-cheek humor to Max Payne. The protagonist's name is literally Max Payne. Originally it was supposed to be Max Heat, and his love interest's name, Mona Sachs? Well, if that's not Bond-level self-awareness, I don't know what is.
Galore.
I must be dreaming.
Voice actor James McCaffrey delivers the pulpy, poetic dialogue with the expected amount of gloomy dramatics. And though the first game came from the charming era of blocky-headed, stone-faced characters, the narrative is steeped in broody, overwrought emotion. No! NYPD officer turned DEA agent Max Payne sets out on a bloody path of destruction for the death of his wife and child. Along the way, he uncovers a drug trafficking operation and is framed for the murder of his partner. Things basically just escalate from there. A good chunk of the story is told through comic-like stills and grumbly voiceover, which adds to the mood of the game, which is limited in terms of what it can do through in-game animation. Even outside the game, no detail was missed. You'd be hard-pressed to find another action-adventure game in the early 2000s with flushable toilets and semi-destructible environments like breakable glass and exploding cash registers. These might seem like stupid little things to worry about in a game about a man going on a vengeance quest, but those small additions immerse the player in the world. Every little element helped tell the story of Max Payne, and that sort of attention and care would become Remedy's calling card moving forward, even when they stopped developing Max Payne games. But we'll get there soon. The first Max Payne game reportedly made over $13 million the year it came out, which is more than enough for a sequel to be greenlit. It was also enough to attract the attention of Take-Two Interactive, who bought out the rights to the series for $10 million and around $24 million worth of stock. Remedy stayed on as developers for the repetitively titled Max Payne 2: The Fall of Max Payne, which was published under Rockstar Games. Released in 2003, the game was equally revered by the gaming public and critics for the same reasons as the first. The few years between releases meant an upgrade in graphics as well as some improved mechanics. The series' trademark bullet time was featured heavily and elaborated on, with the ability to stay on the ground after diving and slow down enemies after each fresh kill. And yet, Max Payne 2 sold horribly. No! Yes. In a baffling development, the name that had garnered massive financial success just 2 years earlier had completely flopped on its second outing. Some fans blamed a lack of marketing. Others blamed the inclusion of a romantic subplot with Mona Sachs. Most were just confused. The poor financial showing caused Take-Two Interactive to take 2 steps back from the IP for several years. In the meantime, it was Hollywood's turn. In 2008, the infamously terrible Max Payne movie was released. It starred Mila Kunis as Mona Sachs, and the ruiner of video game movies himself, Mark Wahlberg, as the titular character. For a game series so deeply entrenched in neo-noir vibes and John Woo-style action set pieces, Max Payne's movie adaptation was tragically uninspired. To be fair, most critics agreed it was at least visually interesting. What really shot the legs out from under the movie was the subpar writing and wooden acting from its lead, but we can't really be surprised at that.
What? No!
Despite the quality of the movie, Max Payne grossed nearly $90 million worldwide at the box office. This evidently proved to Take-Two that there was still money to be made in the franchise, just not with Remedy Entertainment, who they apparently blamed for the poor sales of the second game. Enter 2012's Max Payne 3. Developed and published by Rockstar Games, the third installment in the Max Payne franchise would play to the trope of the tired old man coming back for one last job. The star character was haggard, jaded, and more down on his luck than ever. For many fans, this recharacterization was a huge miss and stirred up quite a controversy upon release. I mean, just look at how they massacred my boy.
No!
Still, characterization aside, Max Payne 3 boasts highly polished gameplay, creative use of the bullet time mechanic, and an online multiplayer mode for the first time in the series' history. Once more, a Max Payne installment was met with critical acclaim, and once more, it sold horribly. It seemed that Max Payne was doomed by a strange, backward curse, where all the best content underperformed while the worst of the franchise succeeded wildly. There's no concrete answer as to why this is, but if I may be allowed to speculate, there is one fairly obvious answer. Max Payne revolutionized the gaming industry. It was so good, it caused the market to flood with titles inspired by one or more of its most iconic aspects. And instead of a rising tide lifting all ships, Max Payne sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Players were so spoiled for choices in their gimmicky gunplay and noir narratives that the property that started the trend was completely forgotten. It's quite an ironic twist. Max Payne would probably have something melodramatic to say about it, but he's been officially silenced by Take-Two. After 11 years, there seems to be no hope of a 4th installment. There is, however, hope for a remake. In 2022, it was announced that the first and second Max Payne games would be getting the next-gen remake treatment. Better yet, Remedy is back in control. Since being ripped away from their own IP, Remedy has gone on to make cult classics like Alan Wake and the visual masterpiece Control. So, it seems like a no-brainer to have them back on the Max Payne train. Though, as it stands in 2023, there's been little actual movement on the project. Remedy's website is as bare bones as you can get. The most recent news we have is that they're still in the concept phase, which means it could be years until we see anything concrete, if we ever see anything at all. Luckily, the original visions of all 3 Max Payne games still hold up remarkably well. Thanks to Remedy, and to a lesser extent Rockstar, we have a trilogy of games that will always be remembered for their impact into gaming culture, even if their sales don't match their overall influence. So for now, we're content to let Max Payne enjoy his retirement. Would you play a 4th Max Payne game, or will you settle for the remakes? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to Nerdstalgic Gaming for more content just like this.